You can't trust the people who are supposed to administer and implement the law. That is not my problem. That's the government's problem. They're making it worse. If you're a violent criminal, you commit a violent crime, I don't want you to get the minimum mandatory. I want you to get the full. I want the book thrown at you. We do not have a gun problem, but we do have two other problems. We have a heart problem, and we have a massive problem with our justice system. We need an overhaul of our justice system. When you have hand slaps, wrist slaps, reduced sentences, it's not a deterrent to these people who just want to murder others for pleasure. It's not a deterrent. There's no penalty. And when there's no threat of penalty, they keep offending. There is not a single one of these executive orders that would have prevented this tragedy. But you know what? That's not going to stop the president. He's working with the ATF right now to redefine who is or who is not a seller. 19 U.S. Code Section 923. The ATF already regulates it, but under these executive orders, the president wants to redefine it to mean that if your granny wants to sell her son, your uncle, or your brother a pistol or a rifle, she's going to have to get an FFL. Do you know what it takes to get an FFL? Do you know the requirements under which they must abide? Well, that means premises check. They get to check how you're storing. You have to keep a record of every firearm you own and every transaction you make, even if you just have one transfer. Now, imagine every single man and woman in the United States of America having to get a federal firearms license in order to comply with these new executive orders that, by the way, are not open to a public commenting period. That's a backdoor gun registry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying that. I'm not invoking hyperbole. I'm not being superfluous with my examples. I'm not exaggerating. That's exactly what it is. It's backdoor gun registration. And I said this was coming months ago. Additionally, they also want to restrict Social Security beneficiaries. Anyone that they deemed, any elderly person receiving Social Security benefits who needs help maintaining their finances, those individuals are going to be suspect. You could lose your Second Amendment rights under these executive orders. Again, that's not hyperbole. That's in black and white up at the White House's website, linked to danaradio.com. On and on it goes. And additionally, those are two big things I'm worried about. The third is mental illness. Now, I told you about Loeffner and I told you about Swung Hee Cho, the Virginia Tech murderer. People have due process in these United States, and we have a legal process already to determine whether someone is mentally fit for Second Amendment eligibility. There is a process to adjudicate them mentally unfit, and it's a feature of the system, not a bug of the system, that you have to prove your case instead of having anecdotal evidence or simple he said, she said accusations. The New York SAFE Act did away with that and rendered thousands of people ineligible. They don't ever get a day in court to defend themselves or to get to face their accuser. And under these executive orders, the president very vaguely said that they were moving to do the same, to make it easier to report if you have a mental illness. You realize the broad definition of mental illness? They sit here and say we don't want to create a stigma for mental illnesses, but how do you think that sounds when you have a mom with a newborn baby who might be suffering from temporary baby blues? Would she be suspect? Would a veteran dealing with PTSD be suspect? For people who think that PTSD, that it only means that you're crazy and that you could hurt someone. They have no understanding of what PTSD is or what it does or how veterans and families cope with it or what the symptoms even are. This is what I'm talking about. We have people who are trying to make these laws, and they believe that because people don't follow the law and because they don't implement it or administer it, that indicates there is no law. All the president is doing is say, well, let's create a registry, let's make it harder for the elderly, and let's make it harder for people who might suffer some slight depression or more. And what is that going to do? It's not going to do anything. It's not going to prevent anything. We need competent people implementing and administrating these laws.